The message arrived on a Tuesday. Captain Kim and her crew aboard the ISV Pathfinder sat in stunned silence as the alien transmission played again. After centuries of searching the stars, humanity had finally received confirmation they weren't alone. "Run the authentication protocols again," ordered Kim, her face betraying none of the excitement churning inside her, "and prepare the containment response package." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Park, nodded crisply. "Setting containment level 4, Captain. Deploying outer hull sterilization field." The crew moved with practiced efficiency, despite the historic nature of the moment. This was what they had trained for. The Pathfinder had been designed specifically for first contact scenarios, equipped with every containment and defensive system humanity could devise. "Message authenticated, Captain," reported Communications Officer Yoon. Her fingers trembled slightly as she worked her console. "It matches all verification markers. This is real." Kim stood from her chair and surveyed the bridge. 20 faces looked back at her, each showing a mixture of fear and wonder. She had handpicked this crew for their discipline, but even the best training couldn't fully prepare anyone for this moment. "We've drilled for this day for years," Kim said. "Now we follow the protocols to the letter. No exceptions, no shortcuts." The Pathfinder changed course to meet the alien vessel at the designated coordinates, far enough from Earth to keep humanity safe if things went wrong. For 3 days, the crew prepared. They reviewed containment procedures, studied the alien transmission for any hidden meaning, and prepared the quarantine chamber. Science Officer Choi ran final checks on his equipment. Atmospheric analyzers online. Biological containment fields at full strength. "Remember," Kim told her assembled officers, "we don't just represent ourselves or our ship. We represent all of humanity. Our caution might seem excessive, but it's not negotiable." The alien ship appeared on their sensors exactly when expected. It was smaller than the Pathfinder, with an elegant curved design that suggested advanced technology. "They're requesting docking procedures," Yoon announced. "Transmit our containment protocols," Kim ordered. "Tell them our requirements must be met before any physical contact." Hours passed as the aliens received and considered humanity's demands. The Pathfinder crew watched nervously as the alien vessel finally maneuvered alongside them. "They've agreed to our terms," Yoon said, sounding surprised. Kim nodded. "Begin docking sequence. Maintain containment field integrity throughout." The docking procedure went smoothly. Too smoothly, Kim thought. Most new technologies had compatibility issues, yet these aliens seemed perfectly adapted to human systems. Through the airlock came a tall, slender figure. Its skin shimmered with iridescent colors that shifted as it moved. Compound eyes observed the humans with alien intelligence, and delicate mandibles clicked softly. "Welcome aboard the Pathfinder," Kim said through the transparent barrier of the quarantine chamber. "I'm Captain Kim, representing humanity." The creature made a gesture that might have been a bow. "I am emissary Lore of the Viziri Confederation. We are pleased to finally meet humans." 3 hours of careful decontamination procedures followed. The alien submitted to scans, samples, and tests with growing impatience. Kim observed every step from outside the chamber, watching as Science Officer Choi meticulously followed protocols. "Is this truly necessary?" the Viziri asked, mandibles clicking with what Kim recognized as irritation. "We have met 17 species before yours. It's standard protocol," Kim replied evenly. "No exceptions. No other species has required such extensive precautions," Lore noted. Kim's instincts sharpened at this comment. Different species, different protocols. What she couldn't see, what none of the humans could detect, was the microscopic biological probe the Viziri had deployed upon entering the ship. It had disintegrated against the sterilization field, its complex nanomachines rendered useless by human paranoia. "Our records show your species has never ventured beyond your solar system before," Lore said. "How did you develop such thorough containment procedures without prior contact?" "Imagination," Kim answered. "We've spent centuries imagining meeting aliens. Some of those imaginings were cautious. Lore's compound eyes studied Kim with new interest. How unusual. No species has ever been so careful. The tests continued for another day. Kim rotated her crew to ensure everyone remained alert. She noticed the Viziri watching their procedures with growing curiosity. "Your caution borders on paranoia, Captain," Lore commented during a meal break. The alien remained behind a containment barrier, eating food brought from its own ship. "We call it prudence," Kim replied. "History taught us that when different populations meet for the first time, disease often follows. We learned from our mistakes." "Fascinating," said Lore. "Most species we encounter are eager for cultural exchange. They rush to share technology, resources, knowledge." "We'll get there," Kim assured the alien, "but only after we're certain it's safe for both our peoples." On the third day, Science Officer Choi approached Kim with his report. "All tests negative, Captain. No detected pathogens or biological threats." Kim reviewed the data carefully before authorizing the final containment release. As the barrier between species came down, she noted something in Lore's posture, a subtle tension that hadn't been there before. "Congratulations," the Viziri said. "You've passed our test as well." Kim's eyes narrowed. "Test. All new species are evaluated for various traits," Lore explained. "Caution is rarely one we observe. Your protocols are unexpected." Later, in her private quarters, Kim recorded her log entry. "First contact successful. The Viziri appear peaceful, but something about their test concerns me. I've ordered continued monitoring and partial containment measures. Humanity has waited centuries to meet aliens. We can afford to be patient a little longer." What Kim didn't record, what she kept as a private thought, was her certainty that humanity's caution had disrupted some plan. The Viziri had expected something different from humans. Perhaps their next meeting would reveal what that was. Dr. Lee adjusted her formal diplomatic uniform as she prepared to address the Galactic Council for the third time that week. 5 years had passed since humanity's first contact with the Viziri, and in that time, humans had gained a reputation across the galaxy. Not for their technology, which was fairly average, or their military strength, which was minimal compared to older species. No, humans had become known for one thing: their almost fanatical devotion to containment protocols. The circular chamber of the council was filled with representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations. Some were humanoid, others utterly alien in form. Dr. Lee had learned to read many of their expressions, and today she saw mostly impatience and frustration. "The council recognizes Dr. Lee of Earth," announced the Viziri chairperson. The same species that had first contacted humanity now held significant power in galactic politics. Dr. Lee stepped forward to the central podium. "Thank you, Chairperson. I understand the Council is frustrated by delays in establishing new trade routes between the Krell Empire and the Moran Collective. However, I must remind everyone that human containment protocol requires a full quarantine period before representatives of previously unacquainted species meet in person." The Krell representative, a massive reptilian being named Drac, rose from his seat. His scales were a deep bronze color that gleamed under the chamber lights, and his size alone was intimidating. Most council members shifted nervously in their seats. "This is absurd," Drac's voice rumbled through the chamber. "The Krell Empire has existed for 10,000 cycles. We have met dozens of species without incident. Why should we delay vital resource negotiations because of human paranoia?" Dr. Lee remained calm. She had faced this argument many times before. The protocols are non-negotiable. All species meeting for the first time must undergo full decontamination and quarantine. We refuse to submit to human bureaucracy. Drax slammed a clawed fist against his podium, cracking the material. Several delegates flinched at the display of strength. The chamber erupted in voices as various representatives took sides. Some older civilizations sided with the Krell, while newer members who had benefited from human caution supported Earth's position. The chairperson called for order. "Perhaps we can reach a compromise. A shortened quarantine period." "No," Dr. Lee interrupted firmly. Earth cannot support any exception to the protocols. If the Krell and Morin representatives wish to meet without proper containment, they must do so in a location far from any populated world, and they must agree to extended isolation afterward. This is unacceptable, Drac roared. Dr. Lee gathered her materials. Then I'm afraid Earth must withdraw from the proposed trade agreement altogether. We will not be party to procedures that violate our safety standards. The human delegation left the chamber amid angry murmurs. As they walked through the gleaming corridors of the council station, Dr. Lee's assistant looked worried. Will they really proceed without us? He asked. Dr. Lee shrugged. Possibly, but our position in galactic trade is stronger than they like to admit. They'll reconsider. 3 days later, the Krell reluctantly agreed to the human terms. The quarantine facility was established on an uninhabited moon, and representatives from both the Krell Empire and the Morin Collective submitted to full decontamination protocols. Dr. Lee personally oversaw the procedures, working alongside a mixed team of human and alien scientists. The Krell representative, Drac, remained hostile throughout the process. Your species is obsessed with invisible threats, he growled as human technicians scanned his massive form for the 5th time. Better safe than sorry, Dr. Lee replied calmly, making notes on her tablet. The quarantine period passed without incident, and the trade negotiations began. Dr. Lee returned to Earth, her duty complete. The agreement was signed 2 weeks later, creating a valuable new trade route that would benefit dozens of worlds, including several human colonies. Life continued. New species joined the galactic community. Human containment protocols remained a source of irritation for many, but Earth's diplomats stood firm. Dr. Lee found herself explaining the same principles repeatedly at council meetings, earning the nickname Quarantine Queen among some delegates. 6 months after the Krell-Morin negotiations, Dr. Lee was surprised to receive a request for a private meeting from Drac. They met in a small conference room on the council station. The massive Krell seemed subdued as he entered, his usual aggressive posture notably absent. Dr. Lee waited patiently as he settled his bulk into a reinforced chair designed for his species. I owe you an apology, Drac said finally, the words clearly difficult for him. Dr. Lee raised an eyebrow, but remained silent. Your protocols saved my homeworld, the Krell admitted reluctantly. Our biologists discovered trace elements of a pathogen in the quarantine filters after our meeting with the Morin delegation. Further analysis showed it would have devastated our population. I'm glad it was caught, Dr. Lee said simply. The pathogen was specifically harmful to Krell biology, Drac continued. It would have appeared as a minor respiratory infection at first, but within a generation, it would have caused widespread infertility. Dr. Lee nodded. That's why we never make exceptions. The Morin representatives had no knowledge of it. Drac added, our scientists believe it was an ancient microbe their species carries harmlessly. That's often how these things work, Dr. Lee explained. One species can carry something without effect that proves devastating to another. The Krell's scaled hand rested on the table between them. The Krell Empire has formally adopted the human protocol for all future first contacts. That meeting marked a turning point. Within a year, 5 more major civilizations had officially incorporated human containment procedures into their first contact policies. The Viziri, who had initially found human caution amusing, became strong advocates after discovering a potential pathogen during meeting preparations with a newly discovered aquatic species. Across the galaxy, species began adopting what was now called the human protocol. Quarantine facilities were built at major diplomatic centers. Mixed species medical teams trained in containment procedures. What had once been seen as human paranoia became standard galactic practice. Dr. Lee found herself suddenly in demand as an advisor to numerous worlds. As she prepared for yet another diplomatic mission, she reflected on humanity's unexpected contribution to galactic society. Not advanced technology or philosophical wisdom, but simple caution, the legacy of a species that had learned hard lessons from its own history of disease and first contact. Scientist Song couldn't sleep. For the third night in a row, she sat in her small office aboard the Galactic Council's research station, staring at datasets that shouldn't connect but somehow did. The pattern had first caught her attention 6 months ago. A simple statistical anomaly in civilization survival rates that no one else had questioned. The holographic displays cast blue light across her tired face as she added another data point. This made 57 extinct civilizations she had cataloged, each following a similar pattern. A soft chime announced a visitor. The door slid open to reveal Tlek, a Viziri historian who had been helping her research. The insectoid alien's compound eyes reflected the holographic displays as he entered. "You should rest," Tlek said, his mandibles clicking softly. "Humans require sleep cycles." "I found another one," Song replied, ignoring his concern. "The Jaroon civilization. First contact, then trade agreements, then population decline starting exactly 1 generation later." Tlek moved closer to examine the data. Perhaps coincidence. Many factors affect developing civilizations. 38%. Tlek. Song rubbed her eyes. "That's not coincidence. That's a pattern." 2 weeks later, after gathering more evidence, Song finally secured a hearing with the full Galactic Council. Representatives from 30 species gathered in the Great Chamber, many clearly annoyed at being summoned for what they considered a minor research matter. Song stood before them, suddenly aware of how human she appeared among the diverse alien delegates. Too many limbs, too few eyes, skin that didn't change color or texture. She was still a newcomer in galactic terms. "Thank you for your attention," she began as the chamber quieted. "My research has uncovered a disturbing pattern in galactic history." She activated her presentation. Holographic star maps appeared, showing the locations of dozens of civilizations color-coded by status. "There's a pattern here," Scientist Song said, gesturing to the display. Historical data from dozens of civilizations floated before her and the council representatives. Approximately 38% of all recorded civilizations experienced catastrophic population decline within a generation of their first extraplanetary contact, she continued. Not immediately, but precisely 1 generation later, after the first children born post-contact reached reproductive age. The Viziri council member, a high-ranking diplomat named Zor, chittered dismissively. "Many young civilizations struggle with the knowledge they aren't alone. Cultural shock leads to social breakdown. This is known." Song had anticipated this response. "This isn't cultural shock," she insisted. "These are biological extinction events that follow a specific pattern." She displayed medical data from 3 extinct worlds. In each case, the decline began with reproductive failure. Birth rates plummeted. Those children who were born showed genetic anomalies that increased with each subsequent generation. The council chamber filled with murmurs. A reptilian delegate from the Krell Empire rose to speak. "If what you suggest is true, why haven't more civilizations noticed this pattern?" "Because it happens slowly," Song explained, "and because the affected civilizations rarely survive to report it. Those who witnessed the decline of others often attributed it to natural causes or poor adaptation." The Moran representative, a being of flowing blue-green tendrils, waved dismissively. "And why would this pattern exist at all? What mechanism could cause such specific timing?" Song hesitated. This was where her theory would seem most unlikely. "I believe these weren't natural events. I believe they were engineered." The chamber erupted in objections. The council chairperson called for order, and gradually the noise subsided. "That is a serious accusation," the chairperson said. "Do you have evidence?" Song nodded to Tlek, who stepped forward. The Viziri historian had been skeptical at first, but had become her strongest ally as the evidence mounted. "We began searching historical records for any mention of similar patterns," Tlek explained. "Many civilizations have myths about population decline following contact with strangers." He projected ancient texts and artwork from multiple worlds. But more importantly, we found references to a specific entity in multiple histories. Her research partner projected another dataset. We've discovered references to an ancient species that appears in the histories of multiple extinct civilizations. They were called the Harvesters. Images appeared showing similar descriptions from 12 different extinct worlds. Tales of visitors who came bearing gifts, followed by decline. Song continued. The Harvesters appear to be an ancient species that uses biological weapons as a form of delayed conquest. They make contact, seeming friendly, but introduce engineered pathogens that target reproductive systems one generation later. The timing allows for maximum spread before symptoms appear. Pure speculation, said the Vizuri counselor. These could be coincidental myths. I thought so too, Song admitted. Until I found this. She displayed the results of biological filter analyses from quarantine facilities across Council space, the same facilities installed following human containment protocols. In the last decade, since human protocol became standard practice, quarantine filters have captured 37 distinct biological agents that show signs of artificial engineering. Each was designed to integrate with reproductive cells and remain dormant until activated by specific hormonal changes, the kind that occur during puberty in most species. The council chamber grew very quiet. And that's when I realized, Song said, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. Humanity's paranoid containment protocols have been accidentally stopping them. Our obsessive caution about disease transmission has been blocking a deliberate biological warfare campaign. The Krell representative leaned forward. Are you suggesting these harvesters still exist? That they are active among us? Song's eyes narrowed. I believe they never left. I think they've been here all along, perhaps disguised as another species. The quarantine protocols have prevented their weapons from spreading, but they're still trying. And they're growing frustrated. She displayed one final chart, showing the increasing complexity of biological agents caught in quarantine filters over the past decade. They're adapting their approach, Song explained. Each new agent is more sophisticated than the last. They're trying to overcome our defenses. If this is true, the chairperson said slowly, it represents a threat to all council species. Not just council species, Song corrected. Any emerging civilization making first contact would be vulnerable. And there's something else. She hesitated, then continued. The human protocol wasn't created out of random caution. Our historical records show a massive population decline approximately 80,000 years ago. Human population dropped to perhaps a few thousand individuals worldwide. Tleck projected human genetic studies beside ancient Earth cave paintings. We think the harvesters may have visited Earth before, Song concluded, and humanity nearly didn't survive. Our obsession with disease prevention may be the evolutionary legacy of being one of the few species to encounter the harvesters and survive. As the council erupted in debate, Song exchanged glances with Tleck. They had presented their evidence. Now they could only hope the galaxy would take the threat seriously before it was too late. The ancient city had been dead for at least 10,000 years. Wind swept across crumbling stone structures, carrying dust that had once been the buildings, streets, and perhaps even people of a forgotten civilization. Director Han stood at the edge of the excavation site, watching as robots carefully removed layers of sediment from what appeared to be a sealed chamber. We found it exactly where the old maps indicated, said Dr. Jin, the lead archaeologist. She looked tired but excited. The preservation chamber should be intact. Han nodded, trying to hide his impatience. 3 months of digging on this lifeless world had finally led to this moment. After scientist Song's disturbing presentation to the Galactic Council, Han had been appointed to lead the investigation into what were now being called the Harvester incidents. His team had been following clues across dozens of dead worlds. Opening the chamber now, Jin announced as the robots finished cutting through the final barrier. Air hissed as the ancient seal broke. The team held their breath, despite their protective suits. No one knew what might be waiting inside. The lights on their exploration drones illuminated a small room lined with shelves. On these shelves sat hundreds of crystal data storage devices, the universal method of preserving information used by most ancient civilizations. "Jackpot," whispered Jin. 2 days later, Han sat alone in his temporary office on the research ship orbiting the dead world. The translation program had finally decoded enough of the ancient language to make sense of the records. What he read made his blood run cold. Director Han stared at the ancient records recovered from a dead world. The translation was chilling. "They come with gifts and knowledge. They observe our protocols but suggest they are unnecessary. Within 3 generations, the sleeping agents activate." The records continued, describing in clinical detail how an entire species had watched itself slowly die out, not through war or natural disaster, but through a carefully engineered biological weapon that targeted reproductive systems. The weapon had remained dormant until the exact right moment, then activated across the entire population simultaneously. Han read account after account, each more disturbing than the last. The final entries were written by the planet's last scientists, working desperately to document what had happened so that others might be warned. The beings called themselves friends. One entry read, "They shared technology freely. When some suggested caution, they assured us such measures were primitive. We believed them." Han's communication device chimed, interrupting his reading. It was Song. "We found something on our end," she said, her face grim on the small screen. Ancient Viziri records mention encounters with a species they called the benefactors who later disappeared from galactic records. The timing matches the first wave of civilization collapses in that sector. "Send me everything," Han replied. "And contact the Council. I'm calling an emergency session." 3 days later, Han stood before the full Galactic Council. Representatives from 42 spacefaring civilizations attended, some in person and others via holographic projection. The mood was tense. Rumors had spread quickly after Song's initial presentation. "The evidence is now undeniable," Han began without preamble. "The historical records recovered from 7 extinct civilizations all tell the same story. The Harvesters are a predatory species that planted biological time bombs through seemingly peaceful first contacts. These agents would lie dormant for generations before activating to collapse civilizations from within." He displayed images from the dead world, empty cities, abandoned nurseries, medical records showing increasing infertility rates across generations. "Their method is elegant and nearly untraceable," Han continued. "First, they establish friendly relations. They share technology, cultural exchange, and trade. During this process, they introduce engineered biological agents designed to integrate with the target species' reproductive systems." The Krell representative interrupted. "But how could such agents go undetected? Most species have medical science." "Because the agents are designed to appear as natural elements within the body," Han explained. "They mimic normal cellular structures but contain hidden programming that activates only when specific conditions are met, usually when the first post-contact generation reaches reproductive age." He showed microscopic images of biological samples taken from quarantine filters. These agents were captured by human protocol filters during routine first contact procedures last year. "Note how they're designed to attach to reproductive cells." The council chamber was completely silent. Humanity's obsession with containment wasn't excessive. Han told the emergency council session. It was our salvation, and now it must become galactic law. The Viziri Council member clicked his mandibles nervously. "We still don't know who these harvesters are. They could be extinct themselves by now." "We thought so too," Han said grimly, "until we found this." He displayed a communication intercepted by human military intelligence 3 weeks earlier. It was written in an unknown language, but the translation matrix had identified key phrases: quarantine procedures, increased resistance, and accelerated timeline. "We believe this is communication between harvester agents," Han explained. "They're aware that their methods are being blocked by quarantine protocols, and they're planning to adapt. The council erupted in panic. Species that had once mocked human caution now demanded immediate protection. The chairperson called for order. "Director Han, what do you recommend?" the chairperson asked when the chamber quieted. "Immediate implementation of enhanced human protocol across all worlds," Han replied. "Every ship, every station, every colony must establish full containment procedures, and we need to test existing populations for dormant agents." The measures were approved unanimously. Within days, emergency quarantine procedures were being implemented across all colonial worlds. Every planet with space travel capabilities began screening its population for signs of the dormant biological agents. The results were worse than anyone had feared. Long-dormant biological agents were discovered in 12 systems. Each contained genetic markers matching the ancient harvester signature identified in the records from the dead world. "They've been playing a very long game," Han told Song as they reviewed the data. "Some of these agents have been dormant for centuries, just waiting for the right moment to activate." "But who are they?" Song wondered. "Which species?" Han shook his head. "We still don't know. But they know we're onto them now." A week later, Han received an urgent message from a frontier outpost. A previously unknown ship had been detected at the edge of charted space. When challenged, it had transmitted a simple message in perfect human language. "Cease your interference in natural selection." Han called an emergency meeting with military leaders from across the council. As they gathered, he displayed the vessel's unusual configuration on the main screen. "They're coming back," Han warned. "And they know we've discovered them." Admiral Kim felt the weight of history as she stood on the bridge of the EDF Defender. 30 years had passed since humanity's first contact with the Viziri. 20 years since Dr. Song discovered the terrible pattern. 10 years since Director Han confirmed the ancient threat. And now, the moment they had all prepared for had arrived. "Harvester vessel now entering sensor range," announced Lieutenant Zhou, her voice steady despite the tension filling the bridge. "Matching the profile from the ancient records." Kim studied the ship on the main display. It was beautiful in its own way, sleek and organic looking, with surfaces that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Unlike any design used by known species. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said Commander Ba. 37 fleets in position." Kim nodded. The combined forces of the Galactic Council's member species had gathered here, at the edge of explored space. Ships of every size and design formed a massive defensive line. At the center was the Earth Defense Fleet, commanding the operation. It was fitting, Kim thought. This had always been humanity's fight. "Open a channel," she ordered. The communications officer worked her console. "Channel open, Admiral." Kim straightened her uniform and spoke clearly. "This is Admiral Kim of the Earth Defense Fleet. Your vessel will maintain distance and submit to containment protocols before any communication can proceed." There was a brief pause. The bridge crew held their breath. Then a voice responded, speaking perfect human language with an oddly musical quality. "Earth vessel, we come in peace. Your defensive posture is unnecessary. We are scholars and explorers seeking cultural exchange." Kim's eyes narrowed. The message matched almost word for word the first contact reports from a dozen extinct civilizations. "Your vessel will maintain distance and submit to containment protocols," she repeated firmly. The response came swiftly. "Your unnecessary procedures hinder galactic progress. We merely wish to share knowledge." Kim smiled thinly. "Then you won't mind following our protocols." She gestured to Commander Ba, who activated the tactical display. Behind the Defender, the combined fleets of 37 species moved into defensive formation, all operating under human containment doctrine. "No response from the vessel," reported the communications officer. "They're scanning us," Lieutenant Zhou warned. "Unusual energy signatures detected." Kim had expected this. "Activate containment field." A ripple of energy spread outward from the Defender, expanding to encompass the entire fleet. It was the largest containment field ever generated. a modified version of the sterilization technology humanity had used since its first ventures into space. Energy spike from the harvester vessel. Joe called out. A beam of pale green light shot from the alien ship toward the nearest Viziri cruiser. It struck the containment field and dispersed harmlessly. Analysis confirms biological components in that weapon, reported the science officer. Exactly as the ancient records described. Kim watched as the harvester vessel changed course, moving parallel to the defensive line. They were looking for weaknesses. Humanity has prepared for this scenario for generations, Kim said to her bridge crew. What the harvesters don't realize is that our paranoia about disease and contamination wasn't random evolutionary development. It was the legacy of surviving their previous attempt. The main screen changed to show an incoming transmission from the Council chairperson. Admiral Kim, the Council has reviewed the harvesters' attack. The vote is unanimous. You are authorized to proceed with Containment Protocol Omega. Kim nodded solemnly. This was not a decision taken lightly. Protocol Omega had been developed specifically to deal with the harvester threat. A permanent containment solution. Understood, Chairperson. We're proceeding now. She turned to her tactical officer. Begin the approach sequence. Maintain containment field integrity at all costs. The massive Allied fleet began moving forward in perfect coordination, forming a sphere around the harvester vessel. Years of joint training had prepared them for this moment. The harvester ship fired again, this time with greater intensity. The containment field flickered but held. They're hailing us again, reported communications. Put it through, Kim ordered. A new voice spoke, deeper and colder than before. This is unnecessary. We have visited countless worlds. We bring advancement to deserving species. Those who cannot adapt to our gifts are simply not fit to join galactic society. We know exactly what your gifts are, Kim replied evenly, and we know what happened to those worlds that accepted them. Natural selection is the way of the universe, the voice answered. The strong survive. The weak perish. This has always been our purpose. Kim's expression hardened. Not anymore. She turned to her crew. Deploy the containment buoys. From ships throughout the fleet, thousands of small devices were launched, surrounding the harvester vessel in a three-dimensional grid. Each began generating its own containment field, layering and strengthening the effect. A harvester ship tried to move, but found itself trapped within the overlapping fields. Its weapons fired repeatedly, each blast weaker than the last as the containment effect drained its energy. The buoys are synchronizing, reported Joe. Containment sphere at 87% and rising. Kim watched the readouts. This technology had been developed by a coalition of species, each contributing their knowledge. The Krell had provided power generation, the Viziri computing systems, the Morin field stabilizers, but the core concept came from humanity. Absolute containment of biological threats. Field strength at maximum. Joe announced. The harvester vessel is fully contained. Kim nodded. Begin the final phase. The containment sphere began to contract slowly, forcing the harvester ship into an ever smaller space. The vessel's struggles grew more desperate, but the field held. We detect life signs attempting to escape the ship, reported the science officer. The containment field is blocking them. After 20 minutes, the sphere had contracted to just twice the size of the harvester vessel. It would remain this way, permanently sealed, unable to spread its biological weapons ever again. She opened a channel to all Allied ships. All vessels, this is Admiral Kim. Containment Protocol Omega has been successfully implemented. The threat is neutralized. Cheers erupted throughout the fleet. On dozens of worlds, people watching the transmission celebrated. The ancient predator that had culled emerging civilizations for countless millennia was finally stopped. Kim looked at the contained harvester ship on her display. We may never know how many species they destroyed before we discovered them, she said quietly, but they won't claim any more. Later, as the Allied fleets established a permanent monitoring station around the contained vessel, Kim recorded her final log entry on the mission. The threat is contained but not destroyed. We chose containment over destruction because we are not like them. We do not eliminate other species. Instead, we have become what they never expected: the immune system of the galaxy, protecting all life against those who would use biology as a weapon. The human protocol is no longer just about quarantine. It is about vigilance, cooperation, and the determination that no species should face extinction at the hands of another. This is humanity's legacy to the stars. The end.